Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 horror thriller The Twin. The film is co-written and directed by J.C. Adola and it stars Logan Donovan, Aleshka Palladino, and we also have Robert Longstreet. Now the film follows a husband called Nicholas, who is left in charge of his young son. Unfortunately, tragedy strikes and the young son dies from an accident. This obviously sends him into turmoil. He has a mental breakdown. He ends up going in a facility for a month. He comes out and he has to basically go into therapy as a result of this. However, while he begins his therapy, he starts experiencing like really terrifying visions of a really evil figure, and that happens to be him, this evil figure. He can't tell what's reality and what's not reality, but he must confront his past in order to come to terms with the death of his son and reconcile his marriage. Right. What are my thoughts on The Twin? Well, I thought the concept of this one sounded really interesting, like an evil twin type thing. It's kind of a more nuanced film than that, really. This is one that kind of delves into the psychology and, the psychiatry of, real grief, real trauma. And there's a lot more going on under the surface in this film than actual basic horror, I suppose. The horror here is, losing a child and then having to cope with the aftermath of that. And how do you continue on? How do you live on? And we'd all have to kind of confront our own demons in a scenario like that. And this character, Nicholas, is no different. However, the demons that he has to kind of confront are a little bit more touchable, if you like, a little bit more on the surface and a little bit more dangerous, and they may actually have more grounding in reality that he or anybody else would like to admit. It also, the trauma comes from, and this like evil twin version of himself, it's also kind of generated from his childhood as well. There was like he had like a traumatic childhood, and again this other side of him kind of resurfaced. This more dominant, evil and cold side of him resurfaced when he was a child, and he's kind of buried all that until this new trauma has kind of reignited this within him. So, I mean, the film focuses really on this guy and him dealing with his grief and his loss and his attempts at trying to move on with the help of his therapist and his wife. And he's just not coping particularly well. And then periodically we get like him having visions of this evil twin of himself. And the film kind of lets you kind of make up your own mind if this evil version of himself is tangible. Is it real? Is he just imagining it all? Is he dreaming it? Is it his way of is it a coping mechanism? What is it? What actually is it that's happening to him? Because it feels very real to you as a viewer, but it could just be his grief manifesting in this way. You do kind of get answers at the end of the film in regards to is if it's real or if it's not, but still at the same time I found the ending to be a little bit daft, in a sense of you've got this, his therapist who's a medical man, and his wife witnessing things at the end of the film that they kind of, it feels like the film just dismiss as part of his treatments, kind of thing. And it felt a bit odd to me, that sort of thing, how the film was kind of doing that. So, I mean, I like any film, that tries to do something a little bit different with their like premise. That, I mean, they could have gone really down the cheap route here of just giving us cheap scares with this, demonic twin type thing, and but it wouldn't really have had any meaning or substance. So what they've tried to do here is tell a more intelligent story around mental health and grief, loss, and trauma, and all this kind of stuff. However, while I commend it for that, it advertises itself as a horror. Number one, I wouldn't really describe it so much as a horror. It's more of a thriller, in my opinion. But it is advertising itself as the horror. The posters kind of give you that impression that there's this demonic twin sort of thing around there, around him. So you kind of want a horror film to deliver on the basic premise of scares. And I didn't find this scary at all. I mean, the bits where he's made up to be this, evil twin. I mean, it looked effective enough, but it didn't scare me. Nothing really about this scared me. The scariest thing about this film is, him losing the son, which, no parent you would ever want to have to kind of face such trauma. So I could relate in that sense, being a parent myself. Beyond that, though, there's not much here in regards to horror and scares. The pacing, I think a lot of people will have an issue with, because it is a lot of talking here with his therapist and with his wife, and him trying to, deal with all the things that are happening to him or have happened to him. And then you get quite a lot of red herrings in a sense of dreams and that kind of stuff, when you're watching something you're thinking, ooh, this has got potential, and then boom, you wake up and you're like, oh bloody hell, it's just a dream. So I think there's a missed opportunity with this. Like I say, I commend it for kind of trying to go down that route of mental health and psychology and trauma and grief and all them kind of things, but it does a decent job on that side, but the other side of the film, the entertainment horror side of the film, it just doesn't deliver, in my opinion. It's pretty much a letdown, which makes the film fairly bang average as far as I was concerned. So while I don't think it's a bad film, the performances are all very good. I enjoyed them. I thought the direction was decent. It just needed a little bit more pizzazz. It needed a little bit more scares, a little bit more horror, and it probably would have fared a little bit better. That's my thoughts on the twin. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining me.